Hello, welcome back to LIVENODING. In this episode, I want to share the breakdown on how I created this type of kind of like a moving typography. It's really pretty much based on a curve, as you can already tell. So if I actually duplicate this and then go to edit mode, if I delete everything, and if I draw like a spiral like this, we're gonna have like a like a moving points on the curve, and it's gonna actually keep looping on the curve itself. I really like this type of effects. Basically anything that goes on the curve is really fun to work with. So these effects, you might already know how to do this. Earlier today on Twitter I saw this from Ronnie, and basically he or she gave this setup, right? It's like an asteroid goes around Suzanne. So this curve seems complex. I think you can make the curve first procedurally, but the actual asteroids effect is basically this setup. So yeah, I'm just gonna give like a breakdown. So what's going on? I just made just like a simple changes on the setup. So the last part here just points to volume, volume to mass, etc. But originally it's just points that goes along the curve, and the one that's really doing the hard job is this sample curve. Okay, so as an input we have curve, and my curve is basically this 1 2 3, right? It's very simple. And the sample curve, we can sample on all the curve or just the based on the curve index. So 1 2 3, right? Or just process all the curve at the same time. So we can sample the curve, but what we are sampling is the position along the curve. First of all, there's this resample curve. So first of all, you resample the curve. Maybe just use count, but whatever you like, maybe use length. So we get the curve points, and then we resample that curve before we bring it back as set position, and then turn it into points over here using evaluated. You can, if you want to see how it works, let's unplug this. There's this factor, and the factor will goes along the curve. Okay, so it's see how it's writing 1 2 3 like that, if based on the vector 0 to 1. So if we randomize the vector, of course we're gonna get random sampling. If you try actually with just a random value between 0 and 1, you're gonna get that already, but it's not moving, right? You can randomize the seed, but it's not really fun. We want the value that goes from 0 to 1 on this path of the curve. So that's why we are using scene time. Oh, by the way, if you actually skip the point stuff, you're gonna get that. So basically it's sampling the points on the curve, like whole curve, but then it's gonna reconnect it back if you are doing it this way. But anyway, we like it to be points, so we don't see that path, but we want the points to be traveling, so we don't just plug this random value. We want the random value to move along the curve. So this is how we do it. Scene time, and I just add a multiplier here so I can control the speed. Just map the range. So in this case 0 to 100. Within 100 frames, in this case, it's gonna go from the beginning of the curve to the end of the curve. You can make it smaller, so it's gonna go faster, but I just make it 100. And clamp, okay, if the clamp is turned on, what's gonna happen is after 100 it's gonna stop. But since if I didn't clamp this, and I'm using fractions, it's gonna do the loop. Yeah, so I think you can also use modulo. Yeah, modulo will give interesting effects as well. It's gonna do some kind of loop as well, but no, maybe wrap or wraps. Let me try. It's gonna do the wrap. Anyway, I'm using fractions. There's also ping pong. Yeah, I guess we just play around with that. Just use fraction for now and turn off this clamp. So this one is normalizing the frame numbers value that's coming in, and then we also add this random value so we have more randomizations. Otherwise it's just gonna go from 0 to the end of the curve and then start again and start again. But we want to randomize that, so we have this kind of like points along the curve, just like a flow of blood on a pipe, something like that, right? So that's what really happening with sample curve. And the rest of them is just because you have points, you can actually instance whatever object you want into it. If you want this to be a cube, just instance the cube on top of it. You can randomize whatever. That's one way to do it. In my case, I just use point to volume, volume to mesh. So these two do the job, do the hard job. Voxel amount, just make it 100 in my case. There's the density, adaptivity. You want that more abstract look, totally up to you. In my case, I remove adaptivity, turn on shade smooth, so we have like a metaballs. I randomize the metaballs from here, so I randomize the radius from here, point to volume. You can of course randomize the radius if you want this to be just points. Random value can go in there, so these points will render as sphere if you are using cycles, right? So this is also really efficient, and you can easily randomize the point color. But in my case, I just turn it into mesh like that. So yeah, I think it's really cool effects. It's very simple, I know, but you can just use, you go to edit mode, delete everything. I'm learning kanji, right? So I can actually write this now. This is tomorrow. So see how the text is, the stroke, each stroke will be flowing, so that's cool. And we can control how many points. I think this is kind of handy somehow. And you can control what's the curve index, or just perform on all the curves. So right, so that's pretty much the effects. Very simple. I think I might have another video already talk about this, but since it's okay to just repeat and recreate. In fact, I think recreating this from scratch will help you to understand the whole setup. This part may be the most confusing part, but once you understand it, okay, it's just a value that goes from 0 to 1, right? But you are kind of remapping a time randomly, and then using fractions to make it looping along the curve. So it's kind of makes sense. The rest of them, I think this is just super basic, but I know, yeah, I just need to reiterate this many times. You can use sphere chalk, I think. Oops, where is it? Oh, it's gone. But anyway, if you recreate the curve using sphere chalk on, you can perhaps in the latest Blender, you can have a single curve, and then you can duplicate the curve, right? You can use that and use the same setup, so you can have like the flow of curve, the flow of points on top of curve like this. So that's pretty much the effects. Hopefully, yeah, hopefully this is useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.